Right, so hello viewers, and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. I'm your host, PPGChu, and well, welcome back to a multiplayer commentary. And by request, we're doing a few more of these things, seeing as how recently Eugen Systems has decided to update the game with quite an encompassing balancing patch/DLC that introduces quite a few new changes to the metagame. Namely, it fully fledged out the PAX, rather the Eastern Bloc countries, that is Poland and Czechoslovakia respectively. But instead of playing those right now, I've decided to take a look at some of the armored changes inside the new patch, namely the fact that armor seems to be quite a lot more viable nowadays. And with that said, today we're checking out a Eurocore, that's French and German armored deck here. So anyhow, starting off the game here, the deck is based on the idea of using very few, albeit very expensive and highly reliable armored units in play. So with that keeping in mind, I bought a few units here that works towards this. Namely, I bought a Pa Tiger as a scouting helicopter, fairly expensive though very reliable omni-use helicopter that's good against practically everything there. Bought a few of these Mistral anti-French little truck anti-air units. They have quite a long range, high accuracy as well, making them quite useful. And the central theme to this deck is really just having solid armored units keeping up the front, picking off tanks and amongst other units, as well as a solid basis of support vehicles such as reconnaissance, which I have a few of these cheap AMX French tanks for, and also good support in the form of these Mistrals and Tiger over here. And yeah, pretty much recently, I've been playing a lot of these armored decks, and evidently the community has as well. And overall, they're based off of this concept of just using, in general, heavy armor to counteract, say, some of the cheaper decks, which either feature large amounts of ATGM, which you can A, sort of absorb and catch up with your tanks, and B, shut down infantry by using your tanks as support for just a small amount of infantry here. Anyhow, I am currently, rather, my troops here are currently going for golf, and my opponents have evidently decided to go for a bit of a tank spam actually during this match, where they unleashed I believe a North Korean Fury type of thing with T-34s and some cheapo transports here. And I've got to say, this actually went quite far before it was countered. As you can see, I mean, the T-34s just barrage upon shots upon your troops, and with these infantry decks, this type of spam just isn't exactly too stomachable. Namely, the North Koreans over here have some quite nifty infantry as well. These are elite infantry. They're actually quite cheap, and they feature good assault rifles. So over here, my ally is just doing their thing, trying to stop this. In the meantime, I am rushing for golf here. So we've already taken a look at the bases of the units. Actually, we haven't taken a look at the main battle tank I've decided to buy here. And well, I've decided to pick Commonwealth for this armored type of play, mainly due to the fact that the Commonwealth features the French Leclerc tanks, as well as the German Leopard 2 line of tanks. Starting off, I mean, I'm more so used to a bit of a mixture between reliable heavy point units and cheapo units, so I'm in a mix. And with that said, I've decided to buy a few of these tanks to start things off with. While I have the heavy 160, 170 point tanks, I've started off with a few of these basic Leopard 2 tanks. They feature a high speed, one thing, a decent amount of armor, though mainly they have a very good gun that has 60 accuracy, ranges up to 2.2 km, and features a decent rate of fire, as well as a good stabilizer. So that's what we effectively begin the game with. In the meantime, yeah, this side of the map is just doing its own thing. At this period of time, I'm thinking, hey, I've got Gulf more so secured than anything. I'm going to see whether or not I can probe and hopefully drive up into Foxtrot, where all of the enemy reinforcements are coming from, into India and the hotel. So I'm thinking about trying to stop my enemy going from that round. With that said, here's how I move up my troops with this heavy armor composition. Of course, there might be infantry hiding inside these woods, so I move the Jaeger up forwards, and these are just cheap German infantry. They're mainly useful mostly due to the fact that they feature really great long-range LMG, and these French tanks follow them up as a sort of a second line of reconnaissance. And as you can see here, I play this sort of an Overwatch game. Infantry moves first, then the recon vehicles, and then finally the heavy tanks. And in general, I'm just trying to bound up between the cover pieces here and there. Namely, from the looks of it, this area inside Gulf seems to be clear. In the meantime, the armored block of North Korea over here continues to roll down. My ally over here, Cook Line, brings out a single Abrams, which seems to do a fairly reasonable job at stopping the tide of tanks here. Although ultimately, of course, a single tank going up against all of that isn't going to stop it. So, and at this period of time, actually, I'm looking for their command vehicle inside Gulf, seeing as how this area is, of course, an uncapped zone. And it so happens that my ally on the left flank here finds it. It's a tiny vehicle inside the other side of the canal, so I see that BTR. I move up my scout to hopefully see it and take a pot shot at it. And it does hit it, though, namely, it doesn't kill it. And if I put the game onto neutral here, as you can see, there's no more enemy marker. Taking a look at that, evidently my ally got it, so that's one of the first plays inside this match here. The second thing is that, seeing as how I'm advancing and I've effectively secured Gulf, I move up these tanks to namely secure the bridgehead over here and also the crossroads junction over here. Again, I'm using Leopards and Mistrals to mainly do this, and at this time what I do here is two things. Namely, on this map, again, I don't remember the name, but what you can do on this map is you can really lock down the middle portion of the map here, and in turn the rest of the maps by namely locking down these bridge junctions here. So that's what I'm trying to do here, and namely you can do that, of course, coming from the opposite facing as well, taking a look at, for example, this bush right here, amongst some other locations spread about there. So, moving forwards, my priorities are to, for example, I have two Leopard 2s here. They have a good line of sight covering this bridge over here, and to an extent this bridge over here. So I've effectively have this line of, or this area locked down, albeit I don't have air cover here, and I'm moving up those Mistrals shortly. In the meantime, I'm worried that the enemy here might counterflank, or yeah, just do some sort of counteracting flanking maneuver coming from India. So I pose one Leopard 2 here covering the road inside this area, and I want to note where I position my tanks. Namely, I put some vegetation in front of the vehicle so that I'm not just having my tanks covered by a small patch of forest, and that's pretty much it. This is because seeing as I have these Jaegers here, anything that comes this road will be ambushed, and what I want to do here is that I want to pinhole my tanks. So for example, in this position, I can shoot down at this road, or a reconnaissance unit can see down a little bit farther and effectively set up an ambush position here. And likewise, I have the Tiger covering the road here as well. Moving forwards from there, I got the opportunity to pick off a enemy Akula because he doesn't see this flanking maneuver coming, and or rather he's just not so attentive about that. So I managed to get a 130 point unit like such. My Mistral fires off a few shots. I don't believe I take down the F5, though later on I do get that juicy MI6 filled with much needed supplies for the enemy shortly. And yeah, overall with this tank deck, it's about moving up smartly, micromanaging your units. The only faults with it is that I mean, it's fairly expensive, and you do have to have a comprehensive level of micromanagement to pull it off. And also, I made the mistake of trying to play it on a very forested map once as I was demonstrating these different decks. So yeah, that's also another consideration. From the looks of it, we managed to pick off yet another 130 point plane. Don't necessarily remember that one, but from looks, but I guess that was the plane that I got instead of the supply plane, rather helicopter, evidently. So that's that. In the meantime, I see that, okay, the enemy has a few of these mortar carriers over here. These things are actually fairly expensive, the MTLBs. These, I believe, are, I want to say 60 point units. So I notice where they're firing. And with that said, I do the tank bounding thing here and then effectively get one tank to watch another one. As soon as the front leading tank moves forwards, I move up with the second one to go to its position, and the process happens again. So it's a method of effectively do an overwatch in that sense. And overall, I mean, we pick off one of these mortar carriers, and evidently these are the 35 pointer ones. Nonetheless though, they're still quite valuable, and of course, your enemies typically will only have a set of 4 mortars if they do go down that route of buying mortars instead of, say, traditional artillery howitzers, amongst other things. And with that said, it's not exactly necessarily the point costs behind them, although there are quite a few expensive LAV and Russian mortar carriers as well there. Moving forwards, I get my Pa 2 Tiger over here to move forwards. I see quite a juicy Mi-25, so I move that forwards. Again, a nice omni-purpose reconnaissance vehicle, has exceptional optics, has a decent amount of strength for a helicopter, 8 instead of 5, and has a wide variety of different highly accurate and highly useful weapons. A Stinger for aircraft coming and bound, rockets for infantry on the ground, and a decently reliable tow missile as well for other targets here and there. And unfortunately, I lose my Mistral, which has granted us 2 kills of varying points counts over 100, so I'm not too worried about that. Moving forwards from there, exceptional optics on the Tiger allows me to see these little, I think, yeah, BMP-2s moving forward. So I launched the, again, fairly highly versatile unit with the Hot 2 missiles, although unfortunately it only managed to hit one of the units there. With the new patch for or the new patch slash DLC adding a whole bunch of balance changes, and of course expanding the Polish and Czechoslovakian lineups. One of the things that seem to happen with it is that for whatever reason, ATGM missiles seem to have been not necessarily nerfed, but perhaps bugged in the sense that they seem to have a low reaction time. And with that said, some of these missiles are guided anti-tank, ATGMs, the G stands for guided. And with that said, they seem to be slightly bugged in that regards, in that they seem to have an artificial accuracy debuff on them, just off of either, say, some sort of code oversight or something not working as intended, like such. Anyhow, moving forwards inside the game, I mean, more and more planes are being shown. Currently, what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to get logistics up to the front in general. I want to solidify this position. I want to cap it off so that we can utilize the +4 resource points we get so we can requisition some more vehicles. And in the meantime, I'm also helping out my ally on this front. And again, my enemies haven't necessarily been buying any more expensive tanks, so these Leopard 2s are doing a fairly good job at that. And with these armored decks, I mean, quite honestly, at the very base level, whoever has the most expensive tanks does indeed win, at least in the current circumstance of having not necessarily great, rather high accuracy, high penetration ATGM system. So with that said, it's a bit of a gamble here. I mean, in this particular match, I've decided to go with these 80-point tanks, whereas in some games against Czechoslovakia, against the Soviet Union, bringing in those T-80Us and T-72 Maldirnas, you probably do have to bump up to the top tier Leopard 2s amongst things like that, the 160, 170 point tanks in those circumstances there. So anyhow, that's that. I managed to move up my Leopard 2s here by quite a large degree. Oddly enough, though, inside this section of the map, they didn't find RGO Fireman's HQ section, which is down to 1 troop, so lucky us, we were able to maintain that region for quite a while longer. In the meantime, my Leopard 2s are just shelling the living crap out of the enemy troops there. And as you can see here, I mean, again, ATGMs are a tad bugged, so I was lucky none of these managed to hit my Leopard 2s. And mind you, the Leopard 2s don't have, say, a bad amount of front of armor, though it is certainly not exactly great compared to some of the higher-end units once again. Moving forwards from there, I believe the game goes into this bit of a skirmish phase. They managed to pick off my Pa Tiger at the cost of yet another one of their cheapo aircraft. I bring in the Raphael here, and I believe I use it to pick off, I want to say the Mi-25, but I might have just gotten it to fly a patrol route. Not from the looks of it, yeah, we pick off the Mi-25 there. May have, no. Mistaken here. I thought I had lost the Raphael. Evidently, no. Looks like, yeah, 2 missiles come from an Su-27, which engages it. And that's also one of the another one of the things about this deck. A lot of your units, including the aircraft, you'll have in good condition and good reliability. Albeit you'll have 1 or 2 of them For example, with these Leopard 2s, I have 7 of them, which is, say, the most numerous tank supply I have. With some of the more expensive ones, I only have 1 or 2 of them available, so if I lose those units, that is going to cost me quite a bit in the game in the long term, and also the short term, of course. So yeah, moving forward from there, a bit of an infantry brawl here. The Jaeger with their MG3s, they are surprisingly versatile in that so long as you can keep the enemy back, you will be able to fend them off just solely off the power of those MG3s. Going off there. In the meantime, as you can see here, the good combination of Leopard 2s and reconnaissance allows me to pick off quite a large amount of those Motostreki infantry men. If I didn't eliminate them, I managed to nick them down to level units of 1 or 2, so they shouldn't be a fighting threat anymore. And moving forwards from there, they drop some bombs amongst other munitions upon my tanks. They don't do much though. Facing up against these T-72s, the one thing that I want to note here is that this General Cube over here with his T-72s, he doesn't have scouting is one thing inside this area. I was under the impression that these tanks were a little bit more expensive as well. But yeah, no scouting here, and I have 2 tanks positioned in fairly decent, or rather perpendicular angles from each other. So with that said, I mean, in these situations, and you should try to get into these defensive positions as well. Namely, this T-72 has to turn in order to shoot at one of my tanks, and with that said, it'll expose the flanks to one of the other tanks there. So as you can see here, I mean, going up against the T-72, this isn't, say, too much of a threat, but going up against some more of the expensive tanks, this will be definitely a very useful method of defense to have, namely due to the fact, as you saw there, we managed to pick off the tank's health from a solid 10 bars to 1. Notably, with some of the more expensive tanks, they'll have absurd amounts of frontal armor, ranging the numbers of 20 or so. And with that said, with a high-end tank versus high-end tank, chances are is that you'll get into this brawling match where tanks only nick off right around 2 to 3 points of damage each time. And with that said, if you can flank them, you can finish them off very fastly. And in addition to that, you of course reduce the amount of time your opponent has to react, whether with, say, more armor, with artillery, or airstrikes like such. And really, yeah, the game goes forwards from there. Pick off another one of those T-72s. He drops some more bombs on me. Picks off the reconnaissance unit, but that's a 30-point vehicle as opposed to an expensive Leopard 2. And with that said, we just move forwards from there, really. Moving up some more of these very, very versatile and sturdy Jaegers, just going off of that MG3 again, which, oddly enough, I mean, yeah, a ton of units use that MG3, including elite and special forces troops, so, you know, make do with that what you will. I think that shows that they are definitely some very capable units there, and I think this might be the moment where this Raphael, yeah, takes a few hits. Anyhow, moving forwards, I'm just moving more troops in here, move up some Panzer Grenadiers as well. Again, they use those MG3s, although, yeah, they have a slightly buffed up variant. It's seems to be an IMG3 as opposed to an just LMG3. Seems to have roughly the same range, although it seems to have a little bit more accuracy to compensate there. Nonetheless, I buy these Panzer Grenadiers because they are shock infantry as opposed to line infantry, and in addition to that, I mean, they have a superb PZF rocket launcher as well, so we move those guys up forwards. On the tank front again, set up quite a nice defense line here. I managed to shift over the Leopard 2 from covering our left flank from this angle, and well, I shifted to dealing with those T-55s here. In the meantime, at this portion of the game, I'm not necessarily considering how I'm going to pick off points for enemy units, but a good portion of the strategy behind this game is, of course, keeping your lines of supply and requisition ahead of time. And with that said, as you can see here, I'm making a few purchases for infantry amongst other things, and this is because I'm trying to speculate upon what I need inside the future. Namely, as you can see here, I mean, one of the opponents leave. Namely, I wanted to move up to, say, perhaps this line of defense is one thing, and I wanted to push into Foxtrot, and again, just to seal up Hotel and India. So, with that said, I'm buying some more infantry, and I'm buying some more reconnaissance units, mainly because those seem to be the things that I need to get the ball rolling. I'm going to speed up the game a little bit. In the meantime, I duke it out with a few minor troops from the pack player, as over here. As you can see, he had a T-55 AMV with quite a nice Bastion. rocket ATGM launcher on it, which managed to pick off quite a lot of my Leopard 2's health. So I moved these Leopard 2's back. I see that some of them are quite damaged, other ones are fine, though some of them have, like, say for example, low on fuel or perhaps low on ammunition. And I mean, at this point my enemy doesn't have any reconnaissance inside this area, so I pull up my Leopard 2s here, and I effectively get the supply vehicles to shift about to give them a little bit more of just everything that they need there, and I finally get to tow the Weasel 2 here back inside the game. As you guys may have noticed, it was stalled up for a very long time, being out of fuel and all. Namely, these Weasel 2s are, I'd say, the direct competition to, I think, the Martyr line of ATGM carriers. I bought the Weasel 2 ones here, namely because they have the same TOW 2 launcher, but I thought they were a tad cheaper, and they are by 50 points compared to, I think, the Martyr launcher as well there. They have roughly the same speed, but evidently they seem to have a really low autonomy range, meaning that they run out of fuel extremely quickly. And with that said, that was a bit of a bad decision by my part, though I think it this vehicle does pay for itself here shortly as it snipes off, I want to say that T-55, let's see, and indeed it does. So that's that. Moving forwards, as you can see, my troops are being supplied. Once they're ready, I launch a bit of a two-pronged attack here. I'm moving up these Mistrals into the forests here to give my tanks some cover from, say, aircraft or amongst other things. I'm moving the Jaeger again forwards as a bit of an overwatch. The tanks cover the infantry, followed by the reconnaissance vehicles. And I see that my opponents are moving up some of these 60-point mortar carriers, and these were the ones that I was I had mistaken the ones over there for. And well, with that said, move up to 2 Leopards. I see a good opportunity here, and I try to pick them off accordingly. I think I managed to get all 3 of them here shortly, and there you go. So that's that. Managed to get my troops to move forwards, get the Mistrals moving forwards, namely due to the fact that these Leopard 2s are, of course, fairly vulnerable to air troops. And I wanted to see whether or not I could find the command vehicle in India, so I sent in some of the cheapo APCs to hopefully scout it out. And, well, in the meantime, they find some infantry, so I wasn't too happy about that. I thought that it was kind of a risk to my Leopard 2s on my advance over here, so I pulled back 1 tank to the forests over here, and the reason being is that the forests over here provide a complete line of sight to this bridgehead, so if they do intend to push at my Leopard 2s advancing over here, they'd have to go the long way around, giving me good lines of sight along their troops, using my reconnaissance tanks, which will allow me to, of course, pummel them with Leopard 2 rounds. Also spot that juicy Mi-6 helicopter. I don't know if I take it out, though. Probably do, because evidently my opponent doesn't move it, though. Oh, actually that's that. It looks like the game finishes before that, and well, that finishes the game off with 24 Southans, 68 kill points, if you will, and right around 600 loss points, if you will, there. So I'd say that that was quite a successful game on that part there. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this multiplayer commentary, and well, I guess we'll be back next time with one more later on. I hope to see you guys then.